Today, we're ranking the ACC coaches. Jesse Simonton has ranked the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and today we're doing a deep dive of the best and the worst coaches in the ACC. So let's take a look at Jesse's rankings. I'm just going to say it right off the top, Jesse, the most controversial list yet. At the top.
Absolutely. I mean, my Twitter mentions were on fire on Monday, and they continue to be ablaze here later in the week.
All right, well, let's get into it. At number 1, Dabo Swinney. I'm going to just run down these real quick. 2, Dave Clawson. 3, Mike Norvell. 4, Mario Cristobal. 5, Pat Narduzzi. 6, Mac Brown. 7, Dave Doran. 8, Mike Elko. 9, Jeff Brom. Dino Babers, Brent Key, Jeff Halfley, Tony Elliott, and Brent Pry round out the list. Jesse, before we get to the top, I got some questions, mainly your placement of Mario Cristobal, who went 5-7 in his first year, at number 4 on the list. Above guys like, let's say, Mike Elko, who goes 9-4, and Mac Brown, 9-5.
A lot of folks are upset with where I put Mario, and I think, again, these rankings are subjective. They're fun, and to me, it's more than just the win-loss one-year record. Mike Elko, I was the guy out here, singing his praises, saying that he was, the ACC Coach of the Year. He ends up winning that first 9-win season in Duke in almost a decade. That's a program that's really struggled to really string together any sort of winning season. So what he's done there, super impressive. Now let's see some sustainability. So I thought it was kind of fair to kind of slot him kind of in the middle of the pack because, the expectations were super low there. They won a bunch of one-score games. If those coins flip the wrong way next season, you could easily see a 6 or 5-win season. The Mac Brown deal, to me, you kind of look at expectations. He had a losing season the year before. The defense continued to regress. They were a team that it was as talented as really any ACC team not named Clemson a year ago. And yet they lost a bunch of one-score games. They were pathetic, specifically on pass defense. He didn't really do much with that staff. And so, yes, they made the ACC championship game, but considering the last 3 years, what they've had with Sam Howell and then Drake May, I think they've wildly underachieved. Now
what about
to Mario.
My guy Pat Narduzzi, though? He's won an ACC title, something that Miami has never done as a program. So why Pat Narduzzi below Mario?
Well, think about it. If your school, just a blind school X, had 2 options as a head coach in 2023, and this is, again, how I kind of factor some of this stuff in, would your school choose Pat Narduzzi or would they choose Mario Cristobal? I think most would choose Mario Cristobal. You're correct. Pat Narduzzi, 6 winning seasons in 8 years at Pitt. What he did last year was honestly kind of surprising because he lost Kenny Pickett. Again, I think this is a demerit for Pat. He ran off a better offensive coordinator. He ran Mark Whipple out of the building because the 2 guys couldn't get along, and he thought they were passing the ball too much, which is hilarious because Kenny Pickett was a Heisman finalist. So he goes out there, he says, we're going to run the ball more. What happens? They start off really poorly a year ago. They lose 5 games early in the season, a nice 5-game winning streak to end the year with a couple upsets, makes that record look a lot better. So I think Pat right at 5. To me, I have no gripe with that. Pitt fans are furious. They think that he absolutely should be number 2 behind Dabo, better than Clawson, better than Norvell. Again, I understand the consternation around Mario. I think what he's done recruiting, the fact that he has won a couple, Pac-12 championships. The Oregon situation's kind of funny because there's some Duck fans that'll tell you he underachieved out here. Look what he didn't do with Justin Herbert. Look what he didn't do with some of the, Kayvon Thibodeau and some of the talent that was out there. And yet other Oregon fans will say, hey, we want a pair of Pac-12 championships. And he positioned this program for where Dan Lanning has now hopes to ascend it, gave them kind of a leg up in the Pac-12 moving forward.
So we're talking about who's overachieving, guys like a Pat Narduzzi, a Mike Elko, a Mac Brown even. Who's underachieving on this list?
See, I would say Mac Brown underachieved. I think the reason I have Dave Clawson number 2 is I think he has overachieved comparatively to any other coach, maybe even
Yeah,
in the
good point.
country. Wake Florida is or Wake Forest, excuse me, is almost impossible to recruit to. So he kind of adapted this philosophy where he's going to sign these 2 and 3 star guys, redshirt them for a year. Freshmen rarely play at Wake Forest, so he constantly fields an older, developed team. And he's had an eye for quarterbacks. This goes dating back to his time, even when Tennessee fans wanted to, light him on fire 15 years ago as their offensive coordinator. He's rebounded from that. What he's done at Wake Forest, again, 11-win season 2 years ago. I think he is probably the most underrated coach. I would say what Mac has done in his second go round at North Carolina has just kind of fallen short because he did build a nice staff and a strong group of recruiters, and yet it just hadn't really come to fruition. They just haven't. The fact that they've had 2 NFL quarterbacks and have really struggled to kind of even get past that 9-win plateau, I think it kind of speaks to, there's a lack of achievement there.
So who on this list has the most to prove next season?
I would say probably in terms of there's a couple hot seat guys on this list. And so Dino Babers, I think, really needs a strong season at Syracuse or else, I think he could be facing the music there, which would be tough for him. He's been there a long time. It's a tough gig. But, the one outlier 10-win season just continues to look more and more like it's irreplicable that they can't do it again. Mike Norvell, I think it's fair to say that, can he truly take this program from contender to, national contender to elite status? He's going to have a stacked team. What he's done in the transfer portal, everyone wants to hype up Lane Kiffin, and I get it. What Kiffin's done has been great. What a lot of schools, what Michigan's done this offseason has been really strong, UCLA, some other programs. But I think Mike Norvell, the way he's navigated the transfer portal the last 2 years, has been as impressive as any head coach in the country. And so now it's about elevating the Seminoles back to national relevancy. He made them a contender a year ago. Can he take that recruiting up a notch? Can they go from 10 wins to 11, 12, maybe even, face off against Clemson in the ACC championship game? Remember, no divisions this year, Josh. So even if they lose that game, in the fourth week of the season, they have to go to Death Valley. If they take care of business the rest of the year, the Seminoles should be set up for a rematch with Clemson come December.
All right, before we get to the top of this list, I want you guys to do me a favor right now. Like this video and subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. We have all the latest recruiting developments and a ton of college football news. So do me a favor right now, smash that subscribe button. All right, Jesse. We got Dabo at the top. We talked about Dave Clawson. We talked about Mike Norvell. Why is Dabo the king of the ACC on your power rankings?
He's just, obviously, I think after Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, he's the most successful, coach in the country. And even though some Clemson fans, there's some consternation there about maybe the program slipping back a little bit because they haven't made the college football playoff the last 2 years. He did win the ACC title for the 7th time in 8 seasons last year. And I think he showed continued growth, this offseason, whereas he still won't kind of dabble in NIL and the transfer portal. I think that's frustrating, but he saw his offense is stale. And a year ago, Clemson had an offensive staff that didn't have a single coach with any Power 5 experience outside of Clemson. And that lack of ingenuity, that lack of fresh ideas, just kind of new scheme, new terminology, new something, they needed it. And that staleness, he addressed it this offseason. He made the splashiest hire of any coach, I think, in terms of coordinator hires, landing Garrett Riley from TCU. Garrett Riley didn't want to go to Texas A&M. He didn't want to go to some other suitors. He chose Clemson. Maybe it's just a 1-year deal because he's so good and does so well with Cade Klubnik. He's a head coach a year from now. That's okay. I do think that Dabo's, saying, much like I did 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, with Chad Morris, new ideas on offense, need to bring in somebody new, fires Billy Napier, Chad Morris has great success. Fires Kevin Steele, defensive coordinator. brings in Brent Venables, great success. He's
Yeah.
been at his best with Clemson when he's brought in outside voices surrounded by the rest of that Clemson family tree on the staff. And so I think that was a home run hire this offseason. He's got 2 national championships on the books as well. So I think he's kind of the unequivocal king of the conference, even if they haven't made the playoff the last 2 years.
But I get the sense that you don't seem as fired up about Dabo as you have in the past. Now, when we sit down here a year from now to do the 2024 power rankings, do you think that Dabo will still be at the top of your charts?
Well, I think, the guy that it could be nipping at his heels, especially if he beats him one-on-one this year, is probably Mike Norvell. Again, I think it's a little bit of what have you done for me lately? Where does your program project moving forward? If Clemson continues to win, they're a perennial 10, 11 win team. Florida State would love to just get to that point, much less win ACC titles. Back to that point, correct. But much less just win ACC titles and compete for the college football playoff. Remember, Clemson was a terrible loss to South Carolina away from being a playoff team a year ago.
Yeah.
So for me, the issue with Dabo is less about, what they may do on the field, but it's more about projecting for the future, because if they continue to refuse to participate in the transfer portal, refuse to participate in NIL, then they're just going to get left. They're going to get laughed because other schools in their same kind of neighborhood, so to speak. We know college football, there's all different sorts of neighborhoods. You got the guys with the mansions, the guys with the nice, mid-sized houses, and then the shacks on the outside. So if they want to continue to kind of live in that mansion street, they're going to have to do what the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, those same schools are doing. So we'll see. Check back in a year.
Yeah, we will. And hey, you guys, let us know in the comment section of this video. Do you guys agree, disagree? Who do you think has the most to prove? And who do you think's the #1 coach right now in the ACC? Let us know.
I will say the #1 riser, we didn't get to that, but Louisville fans were super peeved about where I had Jeff Brom. The irony is that I'm very high on Jeff Brom. I wrote, I thought what was a pretty glowing little couple graphs there about him. He's tough because we just don't know what he's going to be able to do in year 1 at Louisville. But what he's done the last couple of years at Purdue, he inherited a program there that had won 9 games the previous 5 years he'd shown up. He's now won 8 and 9 games the last 2 seasons. So I think Jeff Brom this time next year, probably the fastest, highest riser on this list.
That's your big mover prediction for the list. All right, Jesse, this list has drawn a lot of conversation, a little bit of controversy, but hey, I love it. You have great reasoning for where you got these guys. And hey, the game's got to get played. The season's going to play itself out, and we'll do it all again next season. Thanks, Jesse, for joining Coach's Corner today.
Appreciate it, Josh.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.